beat, boy.
Welcome to another live episode of Halftime Adjustments. This is your host, Eddie Arnett, my man G Witt, Mr. J. Lou. What's going on, gentlemen?
Tighten up, baby.
Tighten up,
It's
fellas.
that time, man.
Fellas. We are finally here, days before the 2023 kickoff for the NFL, which starts Thursday night of this week. Chiefs and the Lions, but more importantly, Sunday for us guys in the two-tone blue as they travel to play the Saints at noon. On the road, man. First game is finally here. The all the talk and all the statistical paperwork, if you want to call it that way, it's time to put up some stuff, man. Especially on the defensive side of the ball. We keep hearing, at least locally, how good the defense is going to be. No respect nationally just yet. A few people out there, but man, it's time. And so over this past week, guys, since the last show, we saw a flurry of roster moves with the emphasis on the trenches, I would say.
Yeah.
And tonight we'll take a brief look at the Final 53, how we did that. I think we did pretty good with our predictions last week. And then most importantly, we'll break down the matchup with the Saints and give the keys to victory. So let's look at the Final 53, guys. We'll touch on a little bit real quick on offensive side of the ball. So we'll go ahead and just give the obvious. No surprises at quarterback and running back for any of us. We had those knocked out. But wide receiver room, guys, G Witt, there was, just because of some injuries and some other things going on at the time, I think there was maybe a few people that we thought maybe was going to make it, and they did.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, man.
Well, in all honesty, even though I mentioned Mason Kinsey, I did have him coming back to the practice squad because I didn't know for sure if he was going to make it or not based on his play. And I was surprised to see NWI, still on the squad and everything a little bit, even though, I had a feeling he might, sort of because they need that seasoned vet, even though he could be a good third or fourth receiver.
Right.
That's the main thing on him. But other than that, really, like I said, I expected Colton Dowell to make it, Kearis Jackson, I expected them to make it based on their play in the preseason and everything. And I just thought, especially Dowell, the way Rob Moore was on his case in that last game, I just thought for sure, the old saying goes, if they're yelling at you, that means they like you and they want you to improve and everything. Mm-hmm. So other than that, there was, in all honesty, the only one that really, and Jay Lou called it with Cal Phillips. He called that one, but I had him on the final squad, and Chris Moore made it. So, again, I wasn't too high on him, but, I would say I was surprised. Well, I should say, I wasn't surprised too much about Racing McGrath, but Reggie Roberson kind of threw me for a loop as well. I thought they would get him back, but they didn't. So, and Racing McGrath, I guess he figured he needs to go find greener grass somewhere and maybe make it at the coast, especially since the coast only had 3 receivers. So it made sense for him to go there.
Well, he's got to do something with those brick hands if he's going to be successful. Right. So J. Lou, man, the tight end room, we kind of, thought Thomas Old man was going to make the squad, but talk to me about any surprises there outside of him.
No surprises there. Let me rephrase that. The tight end and wide receivers, I was off by 1. I had 6 wide receivers, and then I put Kyle on IR. If I would have known 7, I probably would have went with Colton Dowell. So no big surprises there. Even with Roberson might be the only one, but then I think it boils down to Mason Kinsey is the practice squad king. Mm-hmm. And you can count on him to come in. Practice squad does a lot of scout team, and if you listen to them talk about it, he does a phenomenal job fitting in that role for practice. Mm-hmm. And then tight end, I think the biggest shock in tight end was I didn't see him keeping 3. I didn't see him keeping 3. I thought they'd keep 4 because that's what the Titans are known to do, is keep 4 tight ends. So and I thought Vrabel explained it well. It comes down to a numbers game, and you got Samo back on the practice squad, another one that they got on practice squad. So you've got some guys on the practice squad that you can call up, because you got to remember they get at least 3 call-ups before you got to add them to the active 53. Right. So, and again, I think the Titans kind of knew they would cut some people that probably would make it through waivers, especially when you had that many people on the initial cut. And it was glad to see them get. I mean, when you take a look at the practice squad, all the practice squad members on both sides of the ball were in camp. So literally, they had all 16 people that's been familiar with the system. But I think that would be the biggest shock is that we're going into the initial 53 with only 3 tight ends, and no surprises there. I think one thing we learned about Rand, I know a couple folks was on the fence about Wiley. I kept saying all camp that I just thought, given his size and all, and them him, I thought he had a chance. And I think that's one thing, even with Colton Dow, I think that's one thing that we've saw different with Rand as opposed with J-Rob. J-Rob didn't mind cutting a draft pick, a late round draft pick, whereas you see Rand, the entire draft class made it, plus 5 additional undrafted. So they believe in, if they spend the time recruiting and looking at those guys to draft them, let's give them opportunity to develop and grow here in the system.
Right. So did a pretty good job, fellas. I was proud of our efforts predicting that 50.
Yeah.
It was, I hate to say it was a no-brainer because some of them were a no-brainer, but I think they was more surprised on the defensive side of the ball. And we'd look at that front 7. So we all surprised by Naquan making the team. Didn't think he had a chance because he was in somebody's doghouse really deep.
Yeah.
But somebody remembered he was on the team and decided to keep him. Chance Campbell's another one we thought would make the team. He actually got brought back on the practice squad, so that's good for him. But we thought he was better positioned than Monty Rice was. I'll say it that way. And then Anthony Kendall, I think, was another surprise for us. We thought Eric Garrard was going to make it. Of course, he made it through waivers and back on the practice squad after having a solid camp. So you do like, we mentioned about having all the draft picks make it, and then a majority of the undrafted free agents, which was a surprise. We got a really, really young team. If you look at it, between it's Tannehill and the King and Bayard. Like the elder statesmen of the team now. So, this team is going through a youth movement, and it's not a rebuild, but it's a retool, as they've been saying all off season. And you see the moves that Rand has made. And so, fellas, let's look at some of the signings because it was pretty interesting. We kind of was going back and forth about Core 11, and a lot of people was out there like, why did they cut Core 11 and sign him back? And I'm gonna let J. Lou take over because he's got the verbiage down real nice. But J. Lou, kind of explain that, man, and so everybody understand what that was about.
that was one that as we was going back and forth, we were like, and I told you I tried to do some digging and find out, and it has to do with vested players and vested time. So to make a long story short, they knew that cutting Corey Levine, and it makes sense because he was cut and he was in the locker room the next day and hadn't even officially been signed, but they knew cutting him, he's got 5 years, I think, vested in the league. So he didn't have to go through waivers. So literally, when you cut him, he's a free agent.
He just stayed in the locker room.
Yeah. So that probably was one of those conversations. Is like, hey, Corey, we're cutting you. It's a paperwork thing. You're back the next day. He didn't even leave. He didn't move lockers. He didn't do nothing. And that helped them flip it to be able to get Murray back because Murray did have to pass through waivers and all, and it was a better chance for him going when they released him the day they did. And the biggest call out on that was. When you sign somebody as a free agent or for somebody's practice squad, they got to go on your 53. And when we initially made the 53, and as we pointed out earlier, Kyle Phillips didn't get IR'd until Wednesday. Right. So he was really 53. And then we picked up Gibson and the DB from Chicago. You had to make room to get them on the 53. So it was a phenomenal job. And again, I think part of that is just this new regime we got over there where you've got people doing different types of things in the front office to be able to just look at something that, and again, Vrabel is one thing we know about Vrabel. He knows the rule book like the back of his hand.
He can manipulate it so well.
He can manipulate. So that was probably one of those where they knew, hey, we can get by with this and make it work. But overall, I thought very good. And again, with the pickups we got, we did miss out. They missed out on 2 waiver guys that they tried to get. One was a receiver, and I thought one was an O-lineman that they are the Titans. So through week 3, so even no matter results of the first 3 weeks of the season, they are 11th in waiver wire order until week 3. And then once week 3 hit, it resets. And I think it's based off standings at that point.
So, man, thank y'all for joining us tonight, getting your comments and questions in. What's going on? Ken Lou, Darius is with us tonight. Will, Edward Leday, Taylor Stokes, man. Appreciate y'all. Travis White. Y'all coming in, man. Get your comments, your questions in as we as we look forward to week 1 against the Saints. And so a lot of moves. I like the youth of this team. Like I said, it's going to be exciting to see. And I want to see what the offense is going to look like, G. We hadn't seen the full offense just yet. We know Tim Kelly's got some tricks up his sleeves, and he's actually what we've seen in preseason. Even though it's been vanilla, we see how he's going to use his skill positions, right?
Yeah. And so that's the real key. I mean, I'm just waiting to see. I mean, because like I said, we saw a lot vanilla in the office. He's just making play calls, see how they run them and everything. The Chicago game was really the eye opener, the way they were running the routes and all that. But I'm interested to see now that the Bullets is truly going to be flying, how that offensive line is going to hold up against that Saints defensive line, because that's really going to be the key. Can Derek get back to the guy who does not get hit until he actually gets to the line of scrimmage instead of 2 yards behind the line of scrimmage? How is having both Burks and D-Hop? I know Tannehill, his focus is going to be getting D-Hop the ball. He's going to make sure he does that, but how's it going to work with Burks? How's he going to hold up and everything? So this is really going to be interesting, but really my whole focus right now is how is this offensive line going to hold up? Tim Kelly's going to call the plays, and I think he's going to do a good job. At least the one thing with Tim Kelly calling the plays, we will see him change up based on how the game is going.
Mm-hmm. And
that's really what you want to see out of your offensive coordinator. You want to see him change up. If he sees that he does not, the offense is in rhythm, then go to another huddle, go to a hurry up offense to get them in rhythm. So it's going to be interesting to see how all that works out, because we know last year that never happened.
Right. So I want to address this real quick. Will says he hopes they ditch the pitch this year. Now, Will, I know you saw it because in preseason it actually worked. Don't know why it worked so different this year. Maybe because we got more athletic linemen.
That's exactly what I was going to say. The pitch this year will be a little different because of the linemen. I think you see, and again, a pitch gets the lineman out there kind of pulling. I think you see a lot more of that. I think the last couple of years we've been north and south, let Derek pound it and hit the hole. I think you see them a little bit more on the perimeter or a little bit more pulling guard or pulling tackle because they have more athletic linemen as opposed to when we were just, run heavy type offensive line.
Right. Let's see. Taylor says, do you think Dow can play in a slot with D-Hop and Burks? I don't think he's a slot guy.
Yeah, I don't think he's a slot guy.
In my opinion, you guys might say it's different, but you say Jay Lou. Yeah, I just don't think he's a slot guy. I think he's more of an outside guy. He doesn't have that quick twitch like the slot receiver requires in the NFL. Yeah. So Carl just says we think the offense can be ranked in the top 15. So I don't think so. Not right off the bat. It's going to be too much chemistry is going to be made early on. But I'm not saying they can't as the season progresses, because I think the offense can be special because of the weapons they have. But gee whiz, man, it's going to be a struggle early on.
Oh, that's what I've been telling everybody. The defense is definitely going to have to carry this offense until that O-line starts to gel and they just start to get a rhythm as far as the play calling and everything, and the players getting used to the offense and knowing what to do and everything. That's going to be the key. Can they be ranked in the top 15? If they are, that's a huge plus. And I'm like you. I think, really, I expect the first 4 to 6 games, it's going to take that long for that offensive line to really gel. And if they all remain available, can play consistently, then I think that's when you'll start to see that offense really click. But until then, our defense is going to have to be the main one holding people until we can get. I think you might see the offense be more like it was in the preseason, with the exception of the Chicago game, where it takes them a little longer to get rolling. But once they get rolling, I think they'll be fine. But that defense is just going to hold people to field goals at worst in order to keep us in games and everything, because they start giving up a bunch of touchdowns early on. It's going to be rough on that offense.
Right, it's going to be rough. So, guys, let's switch our focus now over to week 1. We're a week away from the kickoff as the Titans hit the road to face the New Orleans Saints. 7-10 last year for New Orleans Saints. Second-year coach Dennis Allen, defensive-minded guy, been on this staff for at least 12 years as a defensive guy. And so, they signed 19 free agents. The biggest ones of those all, of course, is Derek Carr. Now, he's got a quarterback in Derek Carr, which we all know Derek Carr has got some tangibles. He's got some skills, but he can't win the big game. didn't have that luck with the Raiders, and so we saw how that went. So now he comes over to the Saints. He's got a pretty stout defense. They also signed Jamal Williams, and if you remember anything about him, he was with Green Bay for a few years. Went to Detroit last year, had some yards there. Now he comes over to the Saints. Alvin Kamara, though, he's out for the first 3 games, and so Jay Lewis is to our advantage, I'm gonna say. But let's look at this Saints team, man, because they also brought in Kalen Saunders. He's a D tackle for Kansas City, played on that championship front with him and Chris Jones, who wreaking havoc last year for the Chiefs, and so 19th overall on offense. Jay Lewis, 333 yards, 19.4 points a game. That was with James started in the first 3 games until he got hurt. And then you bring in the Red Raider,
right?
So Andy Dalton, and so can't guard me. Mike Thomas coming back this year, man. Talk to me about this offense.
You got Mike Thomas, you got Chris Olave, however you pronounce, from Ohio State. They got some good skill positions, and we know one thing about Carr. He can sling it. I mean, we've seen Carr at least 2 out of the last 3 years. I know we saw him last year. Definitely was hitting the third receiver all game long on that second half. Should be a very good game. They're a little questionable, I would say, on offensive line, just like everybody in the league, it seems like. They play in the NFC South, which, let's just be honest, is a replica of the AFC South when you look at it right now. And I would think that out of both of those conferences, you got the arguably the best 2 quarterbacks in those divisions playing against each other this week. I mean, you can make a case for Sunshine and AFC South, but that Derek Carr by far elevates that team down there. Again, this is going to be a game, and we'll say it all year long about games being won in the trenches, but this is going to have to be a game that we can hold up in the offensive line, because again, I think our D-line can get after theirs, and we know that Carr can make a mistake. He gets happy feet. You get after him because he's always trying to extend the play and just make that big play. So you've got to be mindful of that. Playing indoors, New Orleans will be rowdy down there, but I think it's a good test week 1 for a young team like this. Now, again, we've got veterans in the right positions, but the majority of the folks that we will be seeing Sunday, I think about your Peters, Skorowskis, and all. It ramps up, as G-Wit has always been saying for every year. It gets to a different speed each level you get. Preseason, then regular season, and playoffs. So this would be their first game down there in a hostile environment in a dome. So you know how that noise travels and carries. But it'd be interesting to see. And again, one thing I think we've got to come out and do, and we didn't see a lot of it as much in preseason because again we held our hands, but we've heard them talk about playing fast. The way that you bypass that Saints rush is you play with speed and play with hurry up. And hurry up doesn't necessarily mean that I'm getting to the line and snapping it each time. I can get to the line, and as long as I don't make no substitutions and calling my plays there, they have to keep their same 11 on the field. So I think don't be surprised if you see a lot more of that, particularly now that we have a running back that you can sub in who can stay on all 3 downs as well. That plays to your advantage. So, but yeah, it's definitely gonna be a game, a good test again for our starting offensive line.
Yeah, and G-Wit, and I'll get you real quick. So Derek Carr, he threw for 3,500 yards last year, tied a career high with 14 interceptions. And the Saints, offensive line from last season gave up 25 sacks. So there is opportunity there. But go ahead, G-Wit, talk about this offense of the Saints.
Yeah, well, that's the thing I was going to say. With Derek Carr, I've always thought he was a good quarterback and everything. I always thought really with the Raiders, his biggest problem was that he never had a consistent offensive line for a long time, and took him a while to get out. Then, of course, working with Josh McDaniel was no walk in the park either. So, it's just going to be interesting to see how he does down there in New Orleans with that offensive line. The thing that's going to be hurting New Orleans more than anything else, though, I feel, is that without Alvin Kamara, the running game is going to be a little bit more suspect. Alvin Kamara does a good job of putting some added dimensions on there with his quickness and with his ability to get outside and make people miss. I will say this as far as our offense is concerned. Like, again, it's going to be about I'm going to say our problem with the offense, with the New Orleans defense, is going to be their speed sideline to sideline. How quick are their linebackers? Because, like you said, they can go with the pitch. They can go with a lot of things, especially with Spears. Once he gets in the game, it gets the first taste of the speed of the game. It's going to be interesting to see how we deal with the speed, the outside speed, the sideline to sideline speed. vertically, I think we'll be fine. Even though they do have Lattimore on one side and everything, but it's going to be interesting to watch and see how we do with their linebackers and with their safeties going sideline to sideline. That's generally, I would say, that's generally where we've had our faults the last few years, going sideline to sideline, trying to get to the outside. And I'm waiting to see if that's going to be a struggle. How quick is Tim Kelly going to switch to going north and south, just going straight up the middle? Because there's always an opportunity to do that, especially if you got a defensive line that's really not that large. They're more quick than strong. You could always just power it up the middle. So it's going to be interesting to see. But New Orleans offense, the last thing, Jimmy Graham, he's back.
He's
old. But he's not the Jimmy Graham he used to be.
hey, all I got to say is this. The one Achilles heel for the Titans over the past few years has always been the tight end.
That's true.
Always been a tight end. And I would say it's more exacerbated since Dan Cruikshank left, because I thought they had it figured out with him, but since he's been gone, it's been back to the same old. So that's going to be the one thing I'm going to be looking for in that game, is how New Orleans uses their tight end and how we cover the tight end, because that's going to be a tough one.
Mike Brown, Otis Reese, Kevin Byard.
And see, I agree with what you're saying, Ed, because I think one thing that we did not see in preseason that we've talked about, we don't know what that quote unquote NASCAR type package that the Titans will put out there. Because again, Azir is going to play all three downs.
Yeah,
I'm under the firm belief that next linebacker beside him is going to be, if it ain't Otis Reese, who is basically a safety that you made a linebacker, it's going to be a DB, and I think that's what they're looking forward to kind of be, to stop those tight ends.
Yeah, and so I'm trying to read through these comments. So it was a day said he gonna be at the game, man. So good, man. That's cool right there, man. Dion. Well, man, appreciate you coming out tonight, Dion. I was kind of worried about you. I didn't see you early on. He says Carr can wing it, he can sling it, but our D-line can bring it. Carr ain't ready for that. I agree with you, man. The D-line is, and Jay Lee, you mentioned the NASCAR package, man, and we didn't really, we kind of glossed over this a little bit, but Travis Gibson.
Yeah.
You adding him to the mix along with, Weaver and Murphy and man, I mean, and Landry and Audrey. We hadn't seen the dogs let loose yet.
It goes to show you that they were all about building this team, about getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
Because now we have it. And again, Vrabel, everybody was talking about players in the preseason because of the injuries and that. One thing he did different this year, if we sit back and think about it, they didn't have a lot of veteran off days at all during training camp.
That's true.
That's your veterans practice all day. And last year you would see all of them take off day. There was not a lot of off days. I mean, he trolled everybody with I called 3 straight running plays when it was in the preseason game to get Tanny out there. But I think he did that a little different. And then you see some of the depth that they get. They know that for this team to be successful, they've got to affect the quarterback. You, in essence, now can rotate, as we talked about. You can rotate out your front four, bring in a second four to spell them for a few plays and not really have a major drop off. And I think that's probably the most underrated thing that nobody's talking about, how fresh this team can be by being able to rotate D linemen in and out.
So I'm gonna get some more of these comments in. Yeah, Edward Leday, I agree. And Jimmy Graham, like G Wick brought up, he can still catch the ball.
That's true.
But man, if we let him beat us at this point in his career, we got problems. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he can go catch the ball. Don't get me wrong. He's still Jimmy Graham.
Yes.
But he's not the Jimmy Graham when he was making the Pro Bowls and he was one of the best tight ends in the league.
All I'm saying is, if he does catch the ball, somebody better lay the wood on.
Yes.
Somebody better lay the wood on when he better not catch the ball at all.
So he won't catch the ball at all. You gotta lay the wood on him. He's at that point of his career now that if you start hitting him, you hit him right, he's not going back out there.
See, Ryan Walker, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Ryan Walker says, what do we think about the Kendall Vildor pickup? So he had a RAS score, which is the relative athletic score of over 8, which is pretty good. Mm-hmm. He's got good size. He was a 4.4 40.
Yeah.
Slot type guy. He's big. And so I think, if anything, special teams. So we'll see right off the bat if it's more than that. But I like adding again, you got to go back to Vrabel's offseason last year. He talked about getting speed. And one thing that Rand has done has brought a lot of speed to this football team in the offseason. I mean, from top to bottom, in every position, we got speed.
And another thing I'll say about that, you was talking about the front seven, the front four, whatever the case, the outside linebackers, the D line and everything. The one thing like you said, they're getting after the quarterback, because that's the one thing that'll help if you start getting injuries in the secondary like we have for the past few years.
Yeah.
Another smart thing they've done with Rand and Vrabel, they've actually, again, to go back to your point, they've kept DBs who were in camp the whole time. So
right.
So that keeps you from having to go out on the street and pull somebody out. So now you're getting people who actually
Terrence Mitchell.
that keeps you having to go out and get people off the street. So you actually got people who've been in the defense, they understand it, even though they're on the practice squad or whatever. So you give you a little bit more, I'm going to say, experience depth, and makes communication from the safeties and everything a whole lot easier.
That's right. Yeah, Dion, I agree with you, man. Rand is getting the type of players that Vrabel's been wanting the last couple of years, and J-Rob just didn't have that luck getting those players. And, so one thing we talked about, and I hate to harp on things from yesteryears, I'll say it that way, is we harp on the analytics play a part of this new regime, and they believe in it. They are instilled in it. And they all are in that same mindset. You just think about it. Look at what the 49ers did when Rand was there. I mean, they were all into the analytics. And so now you have a whole department of analytical folks that work for the Titans. I mean, from, assistant GM who wrote the program. Right? And so now you see, as they are getting people in, people have speed. They're more athletic. Even a lineman, Jalen Duncan, even though his pass blocking skills aren't where we think they need to be at, but he's a big athletic guy. And so you see a lot of that for J. Lou. He's killing me over there. It's okay. It's all good, baby. I just laugh because of him. So we'll see what happens. But one more thing, and we'll swap over and talk about the defense, because this is kind of segueing into that defense. We've talked about this over the week, how adding all these pass rushers is the counter move to all these gunslingers in the AFC. I mean, basically. So you got to affect the quarterback, because last year, we didn't get to the quarterback like we wanted to. We did the year before that when Harold Landry was healthy in there. He had 12 sacks. He was leading the charge. 11 sacks, G-Wit, against the Bengals, and you lose the game. It's good to get the sacks, but you're not creating the turnovers.
Well, and the other thing about it, too, remember one of the things we said, especially over the past, I would say 2 years ago, let's just be honest about it, when Landry was still healthy. The big thing about it was when Bud Dupree came in the game, when he finally got a little bit healthy, how much the pass rush really improved.
Right.
Because what you couldn't do, you couldn't double Landry. You really were going to struggle trying to double Big Jeff, and you couldn't double Bud Dupree.
Right.
So you can see in what they've done in the offseason, they've loaded up and made sure that double teaming anybody on that defensive line is going to be a struggle. I mean, even with the guy we just got from Chicago, that was one of the things that came out. How many double teams he was, like, I think 7th in facing double teams last season, and that's one of the reasons why his sack numbers went down. In addition to going from a 3-4 to a 4-3, and now you're talking about he's coming to a 3-4, and being double team is going to be hard. My only question about him, in all honesty, because I've never really watched him play, because we weren't paying attention to Chicago, is how well he does with the run. Because again, I go back to one thing about Harold Landry that's always underrated: his run coverage is great. That's one of the weaknesses of Rashad Weaver's game, is he can rush the passer, but stopping the run is hard for him. So that's the thing I'm looking for. But Caleb Murphy is actually pretty. I saw him; he was actually pretty good at stopping the run, I thought.
Yeah. And so let's take a look at the defense, guys, for the New Orleans Saints as they face our offense. So led by Demario Davis. So I mean, they are pretty solid across the board. 5th in total defense last year, getting up 314 yards a game, but 130 of that was rush yards, and only giving up a little bit above 20 points a game. Again, led by Cam Jordan, who anchors that front four, run a 4-3 defense. He had 8.5 sacks last year. Still effective, still hard-nosed, can play the run and the pass. every down defensive end. And I already mentioned Demario Davis had over 100 tackles, 6.5 sacks. I mean, this guy is one of the best linebackers in the league. Of course, the secondary is anchored by the Honey Badger back there, him and Marcus May. And so you got Lattimore at the corner. So Lattimore is kind of questionable right now. He has some injuries, been banged up in the preseason, but this defense, man, is going to cause problems, especially for a new offense, G Wit, as they try to get some chemistry going together against a solid 4-3 defense.
Well, I'll go back to what both you and Jay Lou have been saying the whole offseason. Skoronski is good, and he's been going up against Big Jeff the whole offseason, man.
Right.
It's really good because I think one of the things you'll find out about him is that he will be a little bit better prepared than most rookies because Big Jeff has been working with him, going against him in practice, but not only that, working with him after practice. Same thing he did with Dylan. As far as when he came back, started going over there, started trying to work with him and get him used to the game and getting used to what goes on. We saw Skoronski in the preseason play really good, outstanding professional football from an offensive lineman standpoint. So he's going to get the shock move because of the quickness of the game. But I think he's one of those type of guys that's going to settle down real quick and be ready for it. And I think that's going to be the key, really, as far as that offensive line is concerned. You that middle of the offensive line, Aaron Brewer, Skoronski, how they're going to hold up as far as that's concerned. I think Dylan might be okay at left tackle. We're going to see what Hubbard does at right tackle because he's going to be the starter. And I'm interested to see how that's going to pan out.
Yeah, and J. Lou, it's an opportunity to run the ball against this team, man. Like I said, last year, 130 yards a game, which was 24th against the run. And they're going to see a big dose of big 22 early on in the game.
Yeah, they've got to tackle. They're stout up front, but they're not thick, if that makes sense. Like they're built more on speed. And again, most of these dome teams are they play on that dome and play fast so they can get after the quarterback. So we do know we'll see a heavy dose of 22, and that's why I like having that change of back pace in the backfield because you don't have to change the offense. So the holes that Derrick Henry's hitting in his 28, 29-year-old season, they're a little faster with Spears. But you don't have to change that. Again, I do think I agree with what you said about Peter. I think he settles down. Dillard, I think he will be okay. Hubbard, I think right tackle is the one. Now, again, offensive line is gonna get beat because everybody beats everybody. But it's a matter of how many times you're getting beat. If you have that Dennis Daly in it or not. I will tell you this: don't be. We've said give this offense 6 weeks. I wouldn't be surprised if you don't see the actual starting offensive line until about that week 6 mark. I think they tweak it depending on play. Because I'm be honest, there's a reason that Dylan Radins was put on the 53.
Yeah,
and that might be your tackle spot. Let's remember before when he went in and tore his ACL, he was doing pretty good. We all saw what he did against the 49ers. We got to remember he came from a small school. He's similar to Caleb. Came from a small school, missed time because of COVID, etc., and just had to. If you look at Dylan Radins now, as opposed to him 3 years ago or so, whenever we drafted him, he looks like an NFL football player now, as opposed to a college one now. And he's put on an NFL type body. I really think that it says something for them. Like to hear Vrabel talk about him this past week, where Dylan kept telling him, "Hey, I'm ready." You don't usually hear Vrabel talk about that like players. They had to actually go to the doctors to make sure it was good to put him on. So I think you want to get through this first month healthy without nobody getting hurt because of the offensive line. But I think you put yourself in a position with the depth now on the O-line to really gel for that stretch run of the season. But they're going to have their hands. I expect Cam Jordan to bounce back and forth. Good rushers do. So I think he'll give both tackles some work. But again, I'm curious to see the formations. Again, I'm hoping we see what we got a sneak peek of in the preseason, a little bit more spread offense. We don't have a traditional fullback, so you can always go two tights, put one in the backfield and run that way, or you can spread out, and that's how you counter all those people being in the box. Because we know New Orleans is going to have 8 in the box on play one.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And Taylor mentions, man, the 12 personnel package is what you're gonna see out there.
Yes.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I'm gonna be honest with you. I think they may, like we said, they brought Thomas O back to the practice squad and everything. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get called up.
Yeah.
And really just see how he does, because I mean, without a doubt, out of all the tight ends that played over the preseason, he was the best blocking tight end they had. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing if he actually gets called up and gets put in the game and everything. If he does, then yeah, we're going to run the ball, man.
And I would almost be willing to bet that we 100% see a tight end called up, only for the simple fact of what Taylor said. This team likes to run 12 personnel.
Yeah.
You can't take that chance with just 3 tight ends. So I think they do bring up one just for a personnel package standpoint.
Especially when one of them is Wiley, because
Yes.
we know he's not an inline blocker
at all.
So he don't have enough weight in his pants to be on the end of the line of scrimmage, which is fine. He's got his own skill set. And he's going to be special for this offense. And so Dion asked, I'm sorry, it was Taylor to ask about, do they play more man or zone? So if you go back to last year before the injuries, and me and Jay Lou, I mean, this made us tear up.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of cover zero blitzes, which was a lot of man covers. So I would not be surprised if we see a lot more man this year, only because, again, you've added speed, and when you have speed that comes out to the quarterback, he better get that ball out quick, or he's gonna be in trouble.
And you've added a coach who I think is better at coaching them to play man as opposed to zone than Chris Harris. So I 100% agree. I think you see a little bit more man with some bump and run in it, because you got some long ones. Again, I think they are under the mindset that you're going to see a couple of pass interference calls, but I think it'll be warranted, because that means that
Roger got some.
Yeah, of course.
But it will be interesting to see this defense come out, and like you guys said, the fast package and everything. I'm interested to see how they look when they run nickel and when they run dime, because that's there's going to be some good talent out there that can actually cover quite a few people. So I think that's going to be the main thing. Again, our main concern, in all honesty, the first 4 to 6 weeks is them maintaining the availability status, and that's my whole key. If they can stay consistently available and begin to gel as a unit, even on the defensive side of the ball, that's going to be a huge plus for them going down the stretch, especially after they get through the bye, because that's going to be that long run where they got it like it was last year, and you got to have people available for that long run in order to make a good splash and get to the playoffs and everything.
Well, you look at all the teams, though, that made runs over the past few years. Even when the Titans, when they had their run in 19 and 20, came back doing COVID, it was 12-5. They were healthy. People were available.
Yeah.
And so you look at the last couple of years. Of course, last year was just a dumpster fire, right? So it's just things that happened left and right. And so one thing you can't feel good about, as we mentioned last week, is that they're healthy coming out of camp. A lot of Dylan coming back was a big plus to the offensive line.
Yes.
Harold Landry getting to play last week was a big plus because he's back full and healthy. And so Elijah Molden is healthy. And so you got some of those key guys that we were so excited about when they came to this football team that we hadn't seen play a lot yet. And so I think of, like you said, G-Wood, if they can stay healthy, we might be a little special this year. It's my opinion.
Like you said, nobody's talking about us.
That's fine.
And that's fine with me. I got no problem with that. I listen to them all the time, and the NFC side is the Jags, and then there's everybody else.
Okay.
Of course they talk about Richardson and CJ Stroud because they're the new kids on the block. But we're afterthought, which is fine. I'd rather be that way, and let it show up in the field.
One injury of note that I would like to monitor and see Tuesday, Arden Key.
Yes, calf injury.
He's got a calf injury, and if he's out there Tuesday, then I'm not worried about it. But that one kind of went under the radar because I believe he got injured after. Well, I think the practice after we went to was a closed one because of the weather. Would have been hot, and you didn't see nothing after that. So it'd be interesting to kind of monitor that one.
But if they had not made some of the moves they've made,
yes,
I'd be very concerned. But
yeah,
you add Gibson, who can play right away.
Yep,
right,
and Murphy, who can spell him,
and can spell him. And then you got Weaver, which will probably get the nod over Gibson just because he knows the system, right? But again, I think the depth there is helping that be a little bit more of a non-issue at this point. Now, if it lingers on for a while, then we probably gonna have a problem because you got to have Arden on the field, man. I'm telling y'all. Look, when we had to practice, that dude, man, he brings all kind of energy. He talks, and he's got this little itty bitty voice that really gets on your nerves. If you're on the other team, because he talks. I mean, he didn't talk. Did he stop talking the whole time?
No, he didn't stop at all.
No, he didn't stop talking until Vrabel said something to him.
Yeah,
and he was on the white team, and Jeff and Danico was on the blue team. He was talking bad.
Yes,
they were talking bad to Big Jeff. He was getting mad too. But anyway, so yeah, Dion, I agree, man. Dylan coming back a lot sooner is fast for a lineman, but he's healthy. They checked him out, and again, like J. Lou said, he wouldn't be out there if Vrabel and them didn't think he was healthy enough to play. Yeah. And so
and not going on PUP means that you think he's healthy enough to at least help you in the first 4 weeks. Yeah. That's the big key. He's not missing he's technically not missing 4 weeks of playing time because they didn't put him on that list.
How can you not get better going against Jeff Simmons and Danico and Harold Landry and Arden Key every day
and Pop-Tart
for the past 3 weeks and Pop-Tart? Yeah. And then you got Caleb Murphy, even though he's not a veteran, he's not seasoned yet, but he got pass rush moves. Right? And now you bring Gibson in the fold, which he's only been there for a week, but still, you got guys that are dogs up front.
Yeah.
I expect big things out of offensive line. That's just my thoughts, but we'll see.
Yeah, we're gonna see. We definitely gonna see. They got a good test coming up Sunday.
Oh, they do. They do. I think it's a good test to start off with to see where they actually are. Right? We're gonna find out a lot about this football team after Sunday, and a week from today, we're gonna be talking about that dub. I'm just gonna say it. We're gonna talk about that dub. We're gonna talk about that dub. Get on this bandwagon. I've been telling people get on this bandwagon now while you can, because when it's gonna come down to the end and we doing some things. Oh yeah, tight. No, it's too late. No more room for y'all. No more room for y'all. But thank y'all for joining us tonight for another episode of Halftime Adjustments. Thank you for all the comments, the questions, the support of the show, guys. Week 1, man, it's here.
Week 1,
it's here, man. A week from the day. Can y'all believe that?
It counts for real now.
I can't believe it. It seems like it just takes. Look, it takes forever. He expect us to get a shutout. They'll get 2 field goals at best. Hey, man, that'll be awesome. That'll be awesome. Look, just like J. Lou said, Derek Carr, he can give you the game if you put some pressure in his face. So
he definitely will do that.
We'll see what. Hey, think about what he played for when they came here last year with the Raiders. Yeah. What happened? He threw a pick to Bayer.
The game. They should have tied it up for him.
He should have tied it up. So he can.
And that was against a game. That was a game where our offense, it was doing like the offense all year long, wasn't doing nothing in the second half, so the defense played the entire second half. And it was at the game that who was the corner that came off the street and got burnt.
Yeah. I said his name earlier, Mitchell.
Yeah, that was a Mitchell game.
Terrence Mitchell. He made Collins a Pro Bowl receiver in his first year. You see what that happened to? He got signed by the Falcons. They gave him some money. He gave him a contract for one game.
It's going to be like you said, it's going to be interesting because right now we don't have the injuries like we had last year going into the beginning of the season. So that's going to be interesting to see how that goes, especially on the defensive side of the ball, but also on the offensive side of the ball as well. I'm just interested to see how Tim Kelly's going to call this offense, because one thing we did have in preseason that we didn't have last year at all, preseason or regular season, we had scoring in the second half.
Yes,
we had scoring in the second half, and not just a little bit,
plenty of it.
Yeah, a lot.
And what we averaged like 22 points in those 3 games.
Yeah.
And let's put this out there too. It was over 350 yards of offense. I'm just saying, one of the games was over 400.
Yeah.
And you talking about with the second, third team guys. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, guys. And I know it's preseason. You can say what you want, but preseason goes a lot for these teams.
Yeah. Well, again, you saw really a lot of, I'm going to just call it depth development. I mean, think about it. Teams couldn't run the ball on us, man. Mm-mm. You playing second and third stringers and they couldn't run the ball. That means a lot to me. I'm sorry.
Oh no,
that means a lot because we've always said, defense, one of your main jobs is to stop the run.
Yeah.
You have to stop the run.
You have to stop the run.
So
you have to stop the run.
You have to stop the run, and you can see by the players they've acquired, they're planning on stopping the run and affecting the pass.
76 yards a game last year. 49ers was 77, right behind them. So that's all I'm saying. With all those injuries, that's all I'm saying. Again, y'all, thank y'all for joining us tonight, man. So exciting. We are here. We are a week away from the opening game for the Tennessee Titans for the 2023 season, man. Join us next week. We'll be back at our regular time, 7 p.m. Unless something changes, we'll let y'all know. But, man, thank y'all for adjusting your schedule tonight and joining us at the 6 p.m. hour because me and Jay Lou got a fantasy draft we got to get to. So,
yes.
So we got to push stuff up, man.
Yeah.
And, man, y'all came out, y'all rock. His is at 7, mine's at 7:30.
Yeah.
But again, thank y'all for joining us tonight, man, for supporting the show, for loving the show, man, for sharing it when you share it to other folks. If you're on YouTube, man, sign up and subscribe to the channel and turn on those notifications so you get the notifications when we come on live.
Yes.
Get updates soon. We're about to post, man. So thank you again, man. We'll be back next week. Titans versus Saints, week 1. Titans on the road. Here we go, man. Tighten up.
Tighten up.
Halftime adjustment, man. We out of here. Peace.
Peace.